The latest. Thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you all. Power is not measured by titles, places, or international applause. It is measured by the people who stand behind you. And today, France is facing a political reality many refuse to admit. President Emmanuel Macron still holds office, but across the country, his authority is cracking under the weight of mass protests, public anger, and deep political fatigue. This is what power without support looks like. Loud institutions, strong words, but a population that no longer believes. These are the same people that the whole world is looking and supporting them to tell us that they are leaders in Africa that are not doing right. Now here is where the story gets even more uncomfortable. While Macron struggles to govern without the trust of his own people, look south to the Sahel in countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Military-led governments are being fiercely opposed by Western powers, branded as illegitimate, and pressured to leave power immediately. Yet on the ground, millions of ordinary citizens are openly rallying behind these leaders, waving flags, filling streets, and demanding sovereignty over foreign influence. This is all we ask. Sovereignty over foreign influence, because we have had enough and we know and believe we can do it without them. So we must ask the question no one wants to answer. Why is a leader with collapsing public support defending as democratic, while governments with visible popular backing are told they must go? Is legitimacy really about elections alone, or about whether the people feel protected, heard, and respected?
You could say that 2025 was the year that French President Emmanuel Macron hopped into the cockpit thinking that he was piloting the economy, but mostly he just turned turbulence into a full-on tailspin. Now he's desperately yanking on all the levers of democracy, but nothing's stopping the plane from spiraling downward, and the passengers are banging on the cockpit door, screaming for him to get it together before they all crash into a mountain.
France is in a state of democratic suffocation, to an extent never before seen under the Fifth Republic. And in 8 years, this crisis of representation, this lack of structural legitimacy organized by the parties of the system has only worsened, plunging the entire nation into uncertainty and anxiety. This crisis did not fall upon the good people of France like a plague of locusts or a biblical flood. This crisis was caused and fueled by the President of the Republic, Emmanuel Macron, and by all those who have served him for the past 8 years.
When a crash actually happens, in retrospect, it's often because the flashing warnings were ignored, or worse, the pilot just let them pile up, like France's budget deficit creeping to nearly 6% of GDP. Logic says the pilot's lost, right? But hey, maybe there's a crew member aboard who can reassure the passengers. Oh look, here's one. Please convince us, sir, that the captain has a plan.
We are continuing to impose sanctions on Russian actors who are contributing in one way or another to this war of aggression. Entities responsible for circumventing our sanctions, known as the Ghost Fleet, including shipping companies working for or in connection with the two oil companies, Lukoil and Rosneft. And then there are the sanctions against 12 Russian agents of destabilization in Europe, 12 individuals responsible for foreign interference or foreign digital interference.
The passengers worried about going down in flames are like, cool story, bro, but unless Putin is sitting in row 3 with a pilot's hat on, can we hear the actual crew's plan to stop the plane from corkscrewing into the ground? Meanwhile, the backup captain, right-wing anti-establishment leader Marine Le Pen, whom polls suggest passengers would really like to see take the controls or have a a go at it, is strapped into a straitjacket and barred from the next election after being convicted of embezzlement.
In France, democracy is a facade. There are many ways to get rid of candidates or opponents. Court rulings granting automatic ineligibility are now commonplace, but there's also the possibility of excluding you from the media system, which is being used more and more. And then in the French presidential election, to be a candidate, you need 500 signatures from elected representatives, and that's increasingly complicated. These elected officials are under pressure not to sign for you, and so it's become a real roadblock, an oligarchic roadblock to prevent you from being a candidate. So there are lots of ways to get rid of opponents in France.
So Le Pen is stuck riding along on this political flight from hell, yelling about Macron's co-pilot, Sébastien Lecornu, who tried to quit mid-flight.
Sébastien Lecornu a démissionné.
Sébastien Lecornu has resigned. He has been reappointed. If he would have been dismissed, I would understand, and the President of the Republic would be making an act of authority in a way, saying, I have chosen my Prime Minister. I want it to be him. But we have to remember others who have resigned. Those who resigned and whose resignation we've accepted, and those who resigned and have been reappointed. I think all this is not serious.
Lecornu's resignation came just hours after announcing his cabinet, making him France's fifth co-pilot in 2 years to bolt from the cockpit mid-turbulence. He blamed egos, rival parties fighting over who gets the controls, while insisting that their own flight plans be followed. But Lecornu's subsequent replacement crew didn't inspire confidence either, almost identical to the one that nearly crashed the plane over budget cuts earlier, including rehiring the former finance minister as defense minister, a move that was so reassuring that even he refused to board himself. Meanwhile, the crew is pressed against the window, obsessively waving at Ukraine and Zelensky at 30,000 feet, while the plane tilts downward and the passengers are yelling, hey, stop sightseeing and get back to the controls before this thing ends up in a smoking crater. So even as it loses altitude, France has spent 8.6 billion euros since 2022, keeping Ukraine airborne, then offered another 90 billion euros at zero interest, basically adjusting someone else's oxygen mask while its own cabin pressure drops. Passengers are already on the in-flight Wi-Fi firing off some reviews.
We agreed on a number of points in response to the obviously unprecedented and extremely serious situation our country is facing today. The first thing we said was that the President of the Republic, through his stubbornness in keeping illegitimate governments in power, is entirely responsible for the chaos that France is experiencing today.
This motion of no confidence has been signed by 104 parliamentarians, i.e., the majority, more than the majority of deputies who were elected on the new Popular Front's program of change, and we very much hope that the Bureau will deem this motion of no confidence admissible. I would remind you that a year ago, only 72 of us signed this motion of no confidence. This proves that awareness is growing that Emmanuel Macron is the problem.
We needed to talk to each other, and so we came here this morning to say that to initiate a process that we hope will lead to a gathering of all the forces of the left and the ecologists, and I mean all of them, both to stand up to Emmanuel Macron, who cannot be stubborn, who cannot continue to want to exercise power as if nothing had happened in July 2024.
All right, now here's where the flight data recorder gets brutally honest. Macron is now the most unpopular French president in 70 years. That's 7-0, with approval at 11%, basically meaning that Macron himself is really the only one who still actually believes at this point that any possible landing is challenging, but still totally manageable. And it's not just the cockpit that's malfunctioning, the legal system is throwing sparks as well.
In this video, we expose the double standards, the geographical hypocrisy, and the growing disconnect between Western political narrative and African reality. Macron's decline is not just a French problem. It mirrors a global shift where people are rejecting authority that serves outsiders. and embracing leaders who claim to stand for national dignity. Watch closely, because this isn't just about France or the Sahel. It's about the future of power itself and who truly have the right to rule. This is what we want these people to understand, that it is not about democracy that they are preaching to Africa, but it's about leaders who are ready to serve their people, and the leaders that the people trust and support are not the ones that they claim they must serve their interests and also use the system of the oppressor. Besides, we are different people. Africans, we are not Westerners. So why must we have a Western system of governance in Africa? These are the questions that always we are asking our leaders. Must we continue to serve the oppressor in the guise of their system of governance? That should tell us that if we continue with this path, the African is not sovereign. If these people continue to be the ones to preach what they think is right in Africa, then we are not sovereign. The French population is telling the whole world the kind of people they have in power. And now we are seeing that everything is being exposed to the African. The people who came, clothed themselves to be the angels and the saviors of Africa. It's like they have finished solving their own problems, and the only thing they can do is now move away from their place into Africa to set Africans free. But truly we know that this hasn't been anything of that sort. They are always here to tell the African that you are inferior and we must continue to rule you. And this is what these people democracy means in Africa, and the African must fight against this kind of system, because under that system we've seen that Africa is going backwards, and everything under that system is only serving the oppressor and not you and I. And that is why as Africans we must move away from anything that we think isn't serving the interest of the African. This is the time for you and I to unite, because our strength is in our unity. These people are making sure we never unite with the division they created among us in Africa. And if we continue to follow that division, we will never go anywhere. It's not about sitting in parliaments and talk about the African solution to the African problem without action. If truly you are a sovereign people, you should fight to determine the kind of leadership you think is right for you, the African, and not to continue with the system that was given to us by the oppressor. We can never go anywhere if we continue to serve their interests. This is the time the African must break away from all the shackles. The whole world is shaking. Everybody is fighting for freedom. It is only Africans who are still ready to continue to be slaves. If we are serious as a people, then we should fight for total liberation, and that will only come when we determine the kind of systems that we will govern ourselves by. We are the only ones that can set ourselves free. United we stand, divided we fall, and united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we'll make Africa great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world, in Europe and in France.